Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Carver Conservation Commission meeting for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. We have a couple of discussion and business items that we're going to move to the end of the agenda so we can get to our public hearings first. Our first public hearing this evening is the continued public hearing for 16 South Main Street. I am in a butter to 16 South Main Street, so as I did in the original public hearing 4 weeks ago, I'm going to recuse myself from this hearing, and Mr. Hall will take over as chair.
Okay. I have full-size plans as well if you want to take a look at a bigger copy.
Okay, there's no need for me to read the whole description here on 16 South Main, since it's a continued hearing, but it's NOI DEP file SE 126-683. So we continued it because a couple of members wanted to go out and take a look at it because I didn't see it. That was Carl and Curtis. So we're interested in your guys' comments on that. Use guys.
Use guys. Well, I want to thank you for meeting us out there. Coming out on a Saturday, appreciate that. It's substantially changed from the first time we talked about it from the plans. As far as what we discussed is a lot different than what he submitted for plans last time. As we recall, you wanted to do a 10-foot gravel. The way the plans were drawn up was a 10-foot gravel path.
Correct.
Which I was concerned with, because that's a lot of disturbance in a protected area. But you change your mind. You don't want to do that, obviously. You just kind of want to leave the topography the way it is. You don't want to bring any fill in. You don't want to make any major changes. It's just you want to be able to get a vehicle through that area.
Correct.
So with minimal invasion to what's going on. So, but I'll let you and Mr. Webby there go on and explain exactly what the changes are for the ones that were there Saturday.
Yes, Joe Webby, Webby Engineering, and at our site visit, Nick is in the commission. He's only going to cut trees. The largest tree he's going to cut in that, what we're calling now a woods road, is about an 8-inch, I don't know what it was, it might have been a maple.
I think it was a maple, yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to just cut it right to the ground and leave it there. And then he's just going to drive over it. He's going to, just like a woods road.
Right. So you're going to leave the stumps. We talked about you leaving the stumps. There was one other tree I thought that needed to be removed, but I think that was a dead pine anyway.
Yeah, there's a dead pine as you approach, but we don't think we have to manipulate the ground. We know we don't have to manipulate the ground at all. We're just going to cut the maple tree and then the saplings, and that should allow us to be able to just drive through it.
Right.
We don't want to add any fill, remove any, do anything with the topography at all. Just basically, we're asking to clear one tree and some saplings in order to connect the path road.
So nothing you're going to do is going to affect any water flow that would build up there. I know there was some concerns of water by the old foundation, the old barn foundation that builds up there. In other words, but nothing you're going to do is going to affect anything as far as the water or anything like that.
Yes.
And what about the culvert over there? What's you still have plans to do that, or what's the?
Yeah, we just want to make, I don't want to cut any trees. I just want to make a pathway from where we're building our house to near the culvert. And the idea of putting the bridge, a temporary bridge or whatever it is because right at the culvert there are trees currently. So there's an area that we could lay something across the culvert and have a path without having to cut anything other than like briars.
So you're gonna take the existing culvert out and put a bridge there, or just leave
No,
the
just
culvert?
leave the culvert alone. Don't touch it. Maybe plant some stuff on top of it.
Oh, okay.
And then place a wooden bridge or some sort of temporary crossing across the culvert, further up the culvert, so we don't have to cut anything.
Oh, I see. This is a little thing. It's proposed wooden bridge here
Yeah,
on
could
here.
be wood or aluminum or just something temporary.
Yeah. Nothing permanent.
Yeah, nothing permanent, no footings, just laid across.
But this is something you could drive over?
No.
No.
No,
No, this is
footbridge.
just for walking.
So on that
Okay.
culvert, on the property line, there's a bunch of saplings there.
Right,
Uh,
Yep, I
And if you
remember.
go up 15 or 20 feet, there's a clearing where we could put something there,
okay,
and then we'll just get over the culvert
okay.
without having to really do much.
So really, on the road part, that our access, whatever you want to call it,
Yep,
you just are asking us if you can cut down a couple of trees, basically.
correct. Yeah, that's what it's.
Without
worked into.
disturbing any of the soil, basically, or anything like that.
Correct.
Oh, okay. That is different.
That's a big difference from
That's a
what
big difference.
that was proposed the
Yeah.
last time, so.
We probably overshot it with the gravel in the beginning, and it was more or less, I never intended on adding tons of gravel. It was just, here we
So to
are.
be clear, everything's gonna be left basically natural except for a couple of trees coming down.
Exactly. Just cut the trees flush with the ground and just drive over them.
And when we were out there Saturday, they really took time to lay it out where it's gonna be.
Okay.
And they really maneuvered around
Yeah.
the areas to make it least intrusive as possible.
All right.
So,
So what do you think, Ann?
I mean, I think that sounds a lot better.
Yeah.
In terms of the walk path, and then my only question is, you're just leaving your driveway plan the same? That's not changed?
No, he's changed the driving plan. He's not putting in gravel, he's just cutting down a couple of trees.
Oh, so this is, I'm getting confused between the
Yeah.
walking path and the driving path.
So the driving path, we're just gonna cut down 1 or 2 trees.
Right.
And then some saplings, just flush to
And
the
we
ground.
walk that?
And we walk
Yeah.
it just enough to drive a car through.
Okay.
We're not gonna touch the soil or move anything around.
Got it.
And then the walking path,
This is where the
same
culvert
plan
is.
as always, except for the bridge is only, so we're not cutting down trees at the culvert. Because you're coming in from one side of the culvert, trying to get over it,
Mhm.
or the trench, I should call it.
Right,
So this way we can lay something over the trench and get to the pond.
okay. I don't have any questions. It's a lot different than what we,
no,
Yeah,
it's substantially different than what
Yeah.
was presented the last time.
All right. Curtis, you have anything? Or no?
It's
No,
pretty
you-
much, it was helpful. Thank you again for letting us come out on a Saturday and
And so Emil, what do you think? What do you think of this?
Again, I would echo the commission that it's an improvement, not to add, fill and disturb the, the area more than it has to be. I think it's going to be difficult to drive down there, depending on what kind of vehicle you have. Without adding fill, I just don't know how possible it is. But, if that's what you guys are, proposing and you feel that it's possible to do that, I would just say, if you find out that you do have to put some kind of fill down in order to support a vehicle getting down, access down there, you're gonna have to come back and get permission from us, from the Conservation Commission in order to do that. If you do go down there and fill it without having that in your permit, it's gonna be an issue where we're gonna have to come and, issue some kind of enforcement, ask you to remove that fill. So just be aware of that. If this is how you're planning to do it, then that's how it has to be done without, coming back and getting some other kind of approval.
Okay.
I will say also that a neighbor asked me to read a public comment because she's not going to be here tonight for this project. So I'm not sure if now is the time to do that.
Yeah, sure. I think it is.
Okay, so this is from Amy Baxter at 14 South Main Street. She said, "Hi Emil, as I mentioned on the phone, I am an abutting neighbor to 16 South Main Street project being considered by the Conservation Commission tomorrow night. We live at 14 South Main Street and we can't attend the meeting in person this week. After hearing some comments from the commission members at the December 18th meeting, we watched the YouTube and we now have a question about the specific project and how it could impact us. Namely, I heard Savory mention during the meeting that the flooding and water retention has worsened over the time where the gravel driveway is proposed, and while this site plan shows 2 separately flagged wetland areas, with the proposed driveway between them, there's a low point in the land connecting these 2 areas that is entirely filled with water from time to time. After hearing Savory note that the water retention is worsening naturally, we want to know how grading the land or filling in that low point would affect the water retention between the 2 areas. Would our side have more water as a result? The proposed plan does not look like it accounts for the water between those two wetland areas, just goes through it. Also, I heard you mention during the December meeting that a small wetland flagged area on our property is not of significant wetland value. That area on our side is an old barn foundation and it does hold water depending on the time of year. While it may not have significant value as a wetland, it does hold value as part of a historic 1830 John Savory homestead, which is our property. We are concerned that if the flooding is already worsening naturally, the driveway would accelerate this trend by cutting off that low point in the land and degrade the historic foundation faster. So we would like to know how more about the potential flooding impact and if it could turn more of our yard into a soggy mess if the wetlands are already claiming more space back there, as they seem to be per Savory's comments. I want to be clear, we aren't commenting to oppose the driveway outright. We are supportive of Nick's verbal plans to us to maintain privacy between the properties and reduce environmental impact, but we do want it to be clear if there will be water impact to us. Thanks for relaying our comment to the commission. Best, Amy Baxter and William Felder. So would you guys like to respond to that? I know she's probably looking at the old plan, so she doesn't see the, this plan, which we got just yesterday from you guys. So I think, she's just a little bit concerned about that barn foundation flooding in that area.
Well, when it rains, there's nothing we can do to stop flooding on their property. And we're not changing any contours. So we're not going to do anything to impact them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I tend to agree with that. It looks like the foundation is kind of a low point at the edge of the property, and then the flows onto your property from there. So it's, the only thing that would have caused, an issue potentially would be filling and blocking off connection between the two, but it sounds like that's not being proposed anymore.
The only question I have for you, Emil, is there any impact from driving a vehicle back and forth and compacting the land in any way? Can that potentially do anything to the wetlands?
I think for the most part, the way this is flagged is kind of a interesting flagging.
Yeah, it's a
but
very
it's
circuitous way in.
really how I'm looking at these are two separate areas. One is the barn foundation. I feel like that's not of high wetland value because it's really an area subject to flooding, and it's not really a vegetated area. So I don't feel like there's going to be impact to that in any negative way by this application, especially with the newly proposed layout for not adding any gravel fill or anything like that. The only other thing, would be really just limiting vegetation in that area. Obviously, it's something that you're going to want to maintain free of vegetation. So it's just kind of, like minor cutting back of this area. So it's going to affect, just the vegetation in the buffer zone to this bordering vegetated wetlands. There's tons of vegetation on the site. I don't feel like having, a small area directly next to this area in the buffer zone where he's going to be driving occasionally. It's not like there's going to be a vehicle going down there every single day. It's going to have a huge impact on the wetland, especially because there already is an existing driveway that runs along, a large portion of it. So I think it's relatively keeping, to how the site is being used currently.
Okay.
So that's my opinion. I don't think it's going to be a huge change for this project. Obviously, now this is a parcel where Nick's going to be building a house, and so that's going to involve having people there, trying to access the part of the property at the edge of Sampson's Pond. It kind of makes sense to me why this application is the way it is. So I don't really have any major issues with it.
Okay, thanks.
I'm good.
Initially, I had a hard time justifying this, and I still do a little bit, just the road part. The other part, the pathway and the culvert, I don't have an issue with really. But if we do allow this, is there, what do you guys think? But shouldn't we have some sort of wetland signs put up or something along that area to, I mean, I'm still a little tentative about this, but,
Yeah,
because we need to be consistent, right?
Absolutely.
And we have to justify this, so.
Yep.
I'm a little back and forth on this one. I sympathize, but I don't quite know which way to go on this right this moment, but I'm still thinking about it. But, you know, what do you?
Do we have, I know we have the 65-foot signs. Do we have any other signage that we could,
So the signage we have doesn't specifically say 65
it just says
foot.
protected area?
It says protected wetlands.
Okay.
So I think if you were to ask them to be placed,
Yeah.
you know, within the 65 foot along the edge of, you know, that long edge of the driveway closer to the wetlands,
Yeah.
that would make sense. That way, when people are driving down there, you know, they see those signs on the left side, or the right side
actually
if they're
probably
coming
both
back.
sides?
You know, I don't know that it would be necessary right at the barn foundation, but if you feel like that, you know,
I think
there's value
lining
to
the-
that.
You know, not like every 10 feet, but there should be signs on both sides, because we do have wetlands on both sides. We have marked wetlands on both sides.
Yeah, again, I think the wetland on the neighbor's property is like very marginally a wetland.
Right.
I think it's more of a area subject to flooding, but I'm not a professional wetland scientist. This was flagged by a professional wetland scientist, so I think you're right. You're right about
We should
that.
honor the fact
But
that it's
yeah,
marked
I think maybe just one sign on that side would
Yeah.
make sense.
right by the foundation.
So this is going to require variance.
Yes.
So we need to have, there's going to be some orders and conditions here. So what, we need to sort of go through that program to figure out what we want.
Well,
Like, on the pathways, or anything we need to add in there that we should add in the order of conditions, I don't
right.
know.
Well, removing of stumps should not, you know, there should be no
Yeah.
removal of stumps.
So we should just keep the cutting of vegetation to a minimum on both.
Maintenance.
On both things. And then we have to allow this little wooden temporary walk across thing, whatever that is.
Oh, yeah, on the walking path.
Right. And you're still going to do something at the culvert?
Just want to plant trees on it.
Oh, you're not going to do it, in here it has like it just says existing wooden bridge.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. Yeah, okay.
I mean, in time, if it gets blocked up, we'll have to do maintenance, but
Right,
I don't
right,
think that's
right.
anything we have to be concerned about right now.
All right, is there anybody in the public that has a comment on this? Savory?
Yeah, I want to... Savory Moore, 12 South Main Street. I'm an abutter to the property, and also my family was former owner of both 14, where we got the letter, and 16, where Nick's going to build, and I'm right next door. I just wanted to clarify a little bit of what I said that was brought up in the letter, that it was getting wetter. When I was a kid growing up, before my father and my uncle inherited the house from their great aunt, Ethel Savory, the maintenance man was filling that foundation with brush and leaves. And so it was kind of fluffy and built up, so it wasn't as wet. I'm sure over time, we stopped doing that once we gained ownership of the house in '63. But over time, those leaves disintegrated, they flattened, they got heavier and became a lower spot, which is probably why there appears to be more water. There's probably not any more or less water than there was before. It just appears that way because it stopped being a receptacle for all the leaves that had blown away. So I just wanted to clarify that. Hopefully that makes the residents at 12 South Main Street at 14, I'm 12, at 14 feel a little more comfortable. Okay?
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? I guess not. Anything from here on the board?
We
or-
can close the hearing.
What's that?
You want to close the
Yeah,
hearing?
I guess we will, but we had
Make a motion, we close the hearing?
yeah.
Yeah, so you can still discuss, you know, the order
Order
of
of
conditions
conditions.
after you close. the
Yeah,
hearing.
okay, let's just close the hearing.
I make a motion, we close the hearing.
I second.
Okay, so all those in favor of closing the hearing?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so now we got to work on these order of conditions and the variance, right?
Yes.
So really, there's not a whole lot we can put in there, right? I mean, what do you, how would you like, Emil, how would you?
Yeah, I guess,
think we should
if,
do this?
if you are, requiring that the, you know, wetlands be marked with, you know, boundary markers, I guess, I would suggest that, you know, you say something like, require boundary markers, in the 65-foot buffer zone along the edge of the, proposed woods road, and then, you know, however far apart you guys feel like those should be. I think I'm not exactly sure how far apart we typically require them to be, but it's probably something like 20 to 30 feet apart.
Any
what?
idea, Joe, on the length of that road that would be in the wetlands, roughly?
It looks,
It's only about, I think, within the boundaries.
Within the boundary area?
Yeah. It's pretty-
looks like it's about 80 feet or
yeah,
something like
I would
that,
say Not
maybe,
very far. Yeah.
maybe 100 feet.
Yeah.
So,
I think it was closer to 110-ish.
uh,
From the red line, the 65-foot to the property line.
oh yeah, from the 65 down though, right, I guess.
Right.
Right, I get you. You got more than that, you got like maybe a couple hundred feet.
So every 30 feet, 3 signs, roughly?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just really want to make sure that this is not considered a road, it's just an access way down there. I mean, I'm really still a little tentative about it. I don't, I mean, they're just cutting down a couple of trees, they're going to drive the four-wheel drive down.
Basically
I mean,
clearing
right.
this,
Yeah, basically.
the trail,
I mean, I still don't like the idea that, I like the idea of it. I'm a little bit still on the edge of that, but, I mean, can we justify this? I mean, is it like
I mean,
something? How,
like I said, I couldn't approve it, I couldn't go along with it the way it was originally presented.
Right.
That's just too intrusive to the area.
right,
But having walked it on Saturday and having them explain exactly what they plan to do, I mean, they're really, you know, not to advocate for them, but they really are taking it to heart that they're not gonna make too much of a mess down there as far as, they don't wanna pull any stumps, they don't wanna bring any fill in. I mean, it's not a road that's gonna be used every day.
right,
It's only gonna be probably used mostly in the drier seasons,
right,
you know?
Right.
They're not gonna be trucking out there in the middle of, in this wet springtime.
right.
I think,
What do you think, Ann?
So I think you've done a great job. So the reason we're hedging is because our job is to protect wetlands. And so when we make exceptions to that, we need to make sure we can justify it to ourselves and to our community. And I think you've done everything possible to make as minimal of an impact as possible, and we appreciate that. And I guess like from an order of conditions with, say, climate change, we had an incredibly wet spring last year. You know, what if that area washes out? Is it just, can we have something in the order of conditions that if something needs to be done to that road, that you just come back to the commission and let us know? Because anything could happen, right? I mean, with
Yeah, I
excessive
mean, you
water
could
and
put
flooding.
a order of conditions that if there's maintenance that needs to be done, you know, including clearing additional vegetation or, you know, erosion control, anything like that, that the commission should be notified.
I say any maintenance at all.
Yep.
We should not be notified about that.
Mhm.
All right,
So I think with all that
Can we
he's,
justify it like that? I think, are you
for
guys?
everything that,
Yeah.
in my
Yeah.
opinion,
Well, I guess,
everything that he's done,
I'll
and
take
with
it.
these order of conditions, I think I can feel
I feel better about it. a little
I feel
bit
much better
it.
about it.
yeah, like, any future alterations would have to come in front of us anyway, but it could be definitely stated in the order of conditions.
Okay,
Would you put it to blanket, call it maintenance, then we'd have to kind of define what maintenance is, you know? There could-
any altering
Alteration.
of?
Right,
alteration at all?
again, like any alteration, yeah.
Right,
That's-
okay.
And that's-
Shrub cutting, would that be like, or just like trimming or something like that?
Well, minor stuff I would not
Minor,
either,
yeah.
but, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it could be as simple like a simple phone call to me. And then, you know, if it's something that's,
Yeah, just say
More
alteration
than-
and just leave it at that instead of like making issue.
yeah, I think that's, you know, that's how our bylaw reads anyways, is if there's any alteration within, you know, 65 foot, you're gonna need a permit. And you're gonna need permission from us. If you're going down there and you're maintaining what you've proposed, then that's something that, you know, we would allow under this order of conditions because it's,
Okay.
that's what, you know, they have proposed, but, you know, anything above and beyond that is gonna require a permit.
Alrighty, so then over the other side where the pathway is, do we want to do anything over there? Like, do we want to say, do we want to put wetland markers over there also? Over there in the pathway? I would think we should too. Do it with the walkways over there? What do you guys think? I mean, right?
I would like to see them.
Yeah, I think we should do on both, whenever we cross over the 65 foot
Yeah,
buffer.
anytime you cross the red
Yes.
dotted
Yeah,
line.
we should, even though that's just a little walkway, we should put some signs up there too. Every 30 feet or so, that,
Yeah, stick with the
Sounds
30
good.
feet.
Yeah.
whatever, if we can, okay? All right, so that will, so the order conditions will say, no, no maintenance to be done unless we get a hold of you, right? And then the signs, right?
The signs.
And that's about it, really.
Well, we want to stipulate no fill to be brought in
And no fill to be brought
and
in,
no stump to be removed.
no stumps for you. That's good. Would that
Sure.
work for you guys?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, all those in favor of approving
Well,
that?
we gotta,
Oh, yeah,
we need a variance, right?
right.
Are we voting on a variance?
Yep, so you can vote to issue the variance.
Variance, right.
All right, so I make a motion, we approve the variance.
Oh, sorry.
Or issue the variance for 16 South Main Street.
A second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so it passes. There you go.
guys.
All right, do come back to us though, real please, if you have any issues, okay?
Thank you
do
very much.
also
Thank you,
have
guys.
to-
Thank
Sorry,
you.
you do also have to vote to issue the order of conditions,
Oh, yeah.
separate vote.
So I will make the motion, we order the order of conditions.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, do they have to sign anything before they take off?
Nope,
Okay. All right, thank you guys.
you guys have to sign something.
Sorry if I stumbled through that a little bit.
No?
You did a great job, Dave.
Entirely since we saw
Yeah,
it.
Oh. So we have to approve the bylaw? Okay, thank you. We have to approve the NOI. We never did yet, do we?
The order of conditions is the.
The NOI?
Is the NOI, yeah.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you, Dave. Appreciate your help on this.
You're welcome.
All right, next up, public hearing, 19C Ward Street, DEP file SE 126589. This is a request for an amended order of conditions. Notice is hereby given in accordance with the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Carver Wetlands Protection Bylaw, that a public hearing will be held at 7 o'clock p.m. on Wednesday, January 22nd, in meeting room number 1 at the Carver Town Hall, to hear the request for an amended order of conditions submitted by Meadow Solar One LLC for the construction of 4 floating arrays on existing agricultural reservoirs and their associated equipment and utility work. This project is located at 19C Ward Street, Carver, Massachusetts, Assessors Map 120, Lot 6-0. All interested parties are invited to attend. Hello.
Good evening.
Hey,
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Sarah Stearns with Beals & Thomas, and here at the table with me is Dean Smith from New Leaf Energy. So this, as you said, is a request for an amendment to an existing order of conditions. Just to refresh the commission, an existing ground-mounted array has been constructed on site. A second phase of a ground-mounted array has been approved on site adjacent to that, though not built yet. And tonight, we're here to discuss an addition to this project, which includes 4 floating arrays on existing agricultural reservoirs. So what you have in your hand is the same thing that's up here, and I can move this closer too. I know it's kind of hard to see. I did a very low-tech highlighter.
What page is that?
This is C10.
Second page.
So it's just the overview sheet of the entire property. I'll wait for all the papers to. So we're looking at the same thing. The constructed ground mount obviously is in the middle of the page. And then I've highlighted the 4 ponds, starting from the bottom here. We're just calling it reservoir 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And were all of you at our site visit? Did everyone get to attend that?
I believe we did.
Okay.
It was a while ago, right?
Yes, a few months back.
Yeah.
This is a while ago, it's summertime.
Yes, very different than today. So this is nice because we've had the benefit of walking out there, looking at the reservoirs, seeing it, and being able to envision, in a 3-dimensional way, not just what's on the paper. So hopefully that jogs our memory. So what, I'm going to just flip the page now.
So Sarah, I don't think we saw Reservoir 4.
Yep.
Okay, is that the change?
Yes. So initially, we were talking about these 3 ponds. As part of the evolution of the project, this rectangular reservoir was added. I'm just going to keep flipping because it's just getting bigger and bigger. So this is C31. Someone's looking for the page number.
C31, you said?
C31 and 2 is kind of the close-up. And that's showing the approved ground-mounted area as well. While you're turning to that, I just wanted to kind of touch on what was included in the package for the amendment and kind of a description of what we just talked about. The original order of conditions, we had actually come in and extended that at one point not too long ago as well. Some information in the form of a frequently asked question document through Mass DEP for solar, floating solar, which I think is very helpful. I'm sure some of you have had a chance to read that as we've been talking about this for a few months. Some photos of example projects, though a much larger scale. The photos show some very large floating projects. So, we're talking about a very different scale on this site, but at least it can give some kind of visual to see what it looks like just sort of sitting on the surface of the water there. And then the other thing I wanted to touch on, because we did speak about this, is New Leaf Energy has contracted a pond management company to be part of this proposal. I know we talked about how are the reservoirs going to be monitored and kind of what is the life of these and, how is this going to, who's watching this? And so, taking that input from the commission, New Leaf has contracted with a company called Water and Wetland Lake Management. They've been out to the site. They've done some baseline water quality testing. They've prepared a preliminary report with that information included. We talked to them at length about how to approach this, what are the important aspects, how is this going to be monitored, what's the protocol, et cetera. And so we've included their preliminary report for your review. And some additional information in there about what they're sampling for, what's the protocol in terms of longer-term management and that sort of thing too. So we think that's a really important aspect for this kind of project because though it may not be new in the world, it's new around here. And so continuing to collect data points on these types of projects, I think especially in these early stages, is important. And I think that we heard loud and clear from this group when we visited the site. And I think this preliminary report does a really good job of kind of outlining an appropriate monitoring protocol with reporting. This company would be responsible for the reporting. we're proposing seasonally at this point, but open to conversation with that as the project review continues. But that's basically, wanted to give a starting point for discussion at this stage as we present the project. So the other thing I just wanted to touch on is that using all the colors of the highlighters that I had at my desk this morning, I highlighted the ponds and the buffer zones that we had added. These first ponds labeled reservoirs 2 and 3. All of these were constructed for the purpose of irrigation storage for the Cranberry Bog operation, as we know. But these two, which we saw when we went out there, we sort of walked down this road. We didn't walk around the back of it, but those have quite a bit of associated vegetation, a fringe of, hydrophytic plants. And so we definitely wanted to call those out, those two ponds, as very different than the other ponds that are out there. Though this rectangular one and the southern one are very closely maintained right to the bank, just to provide access in and out for the grower. But for these two up here, we thought it was important to call that out as, there's that vegetated wetland fringe there. The other thing I just wanted to call out on the plan is that we have included some potential staging areas just to the north here and then along the road here where we kind of hung out for a little while, and trying to utilize the areas that made the most sense logically to access the ponds. At this early stage in the design, New Leaf is considering a couple of different methodologies for construction, and 2 different vendors right now who have very different approaches to how these are constructed and installed. And so we kind of took the worst case scenario in terms of what they would need for a footprint for staging and compiling the array materials and sliding them into the pond, adjacent to the ponds. That may not end up happening if they go with a different alternative that uses a crane or different techniques where they don't need as big of a staging area. But for the purposes of the discussion here and the order of conditions, we thought we would take the larger footprint just for conversation. And just flip the page to the southern pond. Kind of same thing down here. When this pond is full, there's really very little vegetation. There, as the pond gets drawn down throughout the season, as the grower uses the water, there is some vegetation below that water line that crops up, but for the most part, it is devoid of that, especially, again, where the access is used frequently. So that's really the difference in my little color coding tonight. And then the preliminary layouts, somewhat subject to change, but it really is being designed to meet the criteria that the state dictates for these in terms of no more than 50% coverage, and I just listed them in the application materials, but that's really kind of the overview. So happy to turn it over to the commission for questions, and Dean is here, and we have other folks here as well from New Leaf, so we can, all try to answer your questions tonight, but that's the overview.
So since we didn't see Reservoir 4, and I can't picture it in my head, so lucky for you, I live off of this bog, so I'm down there a lot, but I don't remember seeing a reservoir there. How would you categorize that from a vegetation standpoint?
0.
So it's like this
It's
one?
right here.
It's like this one?
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can see, even
It looks,
this is just
yeah.
an aerial photo.
Okay.
Just to give you I know that's hard to see on the plan, but just sometimes the aerial.
Where's
is
the
better.
reservoir for?
That,
That's 4?
yeah.
We saw the other 3.
Yep. So it's really just nestled into the,
Right.
next to
Which
these
one is this
bogs.
Which one is this one here?
This is number 1.
One, okay, that was,
Yeah,
that was
the
the
southern one.
The one where people swim in or something.
Yeah, yeah,
that's, I'm trying to remember.
Yes, the power line runs across
Yeah,
in here.
okay.
That's number 4.
That's 4, yeah. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Just gonna-
Loop around.
Yeah,
Okay.
yep, yep.
Do you know if hand 1-4 was made a reservoir?
I can tell closely by the aerial photos.
I
just
looked at
have to
the
look.
aerial photos, but I couldn't.
Yeah. It looks like around 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, sometime in that 2014, 2016 range.
I mean, I can see it in 2021, but I don't see it. So I just can't picture it, and I walk that way.
Yeah.
But I might not have walked
I
that way
think
since
it's,
2021.
I think when you're walking, it's the same
Flat.
level as
It's
the
flat,
bog.
yeah.
So there's really nothing growing up around it to
Okay.
draw your eye.
Yeah, so I might have missed it.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to include the aerial, because it's really the best way to look at it. You can see it's very regular shaped, and it's clearly constructed to fit in that spot and just, maximize how much water it can hold, is what I would guess.
The two electrical equipment areas are new.
One of those is associated with the ground mount system that's been approved. There's a single new one that would be associated with the floating solar.
And that's on
Yeah,
Reservoir
there's-
1 is new?
The one that's down near Pond 1, yes.
That one's the new one?
Right there, just north of the southernmost pond.
Okay, and the one that's up by reservoirs 2, 3, and 4 is already existing from the rest of the solar mount, the ground
I
mounted?
believe, let's look at the plan just to make sure I'm not misspeaking. Yeah.
No,
that
there's another
is-
one. There's another
Oh, there
one
is
in-
another
in-
small one.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's right at the southern
that's new.
corner of that. That would be new as well.
Okay. All right,
It's
okay.
right off the road.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it's,
And
there's no
we
call
we
out.
tried to depict on the plans where we're using existing bog roads. So there's different hatching on there. The only new construction for the access ways are turnarounds near those equipment areas. So there's very little. And one thing that we haven't mentioned so far is the electrical interconnection to the grid will be up adjacent to Ward Street. So that's proposed as all pad-mounted equipment, except for the connection pole itself, and that's existing right now.
Okay.
And I should mention too that the project is scheduled for its first hearing with the planning board next week. So it probably makes sense to keep this hearing open, just in the event there are any changes requested by the planning board
Okay.
and the plans change, so.
That makes sense.
So the road, you're gonna do some improvement on the road, is that what's going on?
It's really quite adequate
Okay.
for access. The fire department's been out there. It's adequate for emergency access. They've driven it. So it really requires very few improvements.
Okay.
We do have notations on the plan that, if it were to be damaged in any way during construction operations or anything, that we would maintain that.
Yeah, and as Sarah said, that's the road we walked down.
Yes.
So, I remember it.
So just to be clear, on that diagram right there, what we call them Reservoir 1, 2, what was that, is that 1, 2, and 4?
2, 3,
2, 3, 4, okay, and 1's the one way down south.
Yes.
All right, okay.
Yep. If you open your packet on the second page, we have them labeled.
This thing?
Yeah. Flip on the second page. There's a little cheat sheet.
Always helps.
Yep.
So the ground-mounted solar system is on the phase 2 currently. You guys haven't started that construction yet. So does that involve, is that part to the south of the reservoirs 2 and 3? Is that part of that, or is that already constructed?
Right here.
No,
This part?
yeah,
This is constructed.
that's all
This is
constructed.
phase 1.
Okay,
It's constructed.
Yep.
This is phase 2.
okay, got it.
Yeah, and that east-west access way there is along an existing bog road as well.
Yep.
So the new construction would just be the turnaround at the equipment area.
Okay. And the existing bog road, that's also adequate for what your purposes in that area?
Yes.
So your phase 2 ground-mounted solar, that's not on Eugene Cobb's property?
No.
No.
Is his
He-
property to the left of that?
Yes, his property is directly to the west.
Right, because he's
Yeah.
turned that over to federal
Right,
conservation.
Yeah, he has-
and that's
No.
more of a natural slough system that's,
Right.
it's a wetland system.
Okay.
So where the phase 2 ground mounted the solar is going, are those existing bogs there? I don't remember, I was reading it there, that's just,
Yeah.
they're gonna be over bogs, right?
They were upland
They were up-
areas.
okay.
Yeah, the existing system and the area to the west of it were part of one bog system.
Uh-huh.
The northern part of the ground mount system that's north of that equipment area was, it was worked on. It was from an upland area. There was some work done there to create a new bog, but it was never created. So just some work towards that end, it was never
In
completed.
the area to our left there, that sliver there, that's just upland area, there's nothing, is it
It's just kind of open.
open, it's
right
open
now.
area right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, to the left of phase two are bogs that are being turned back into wetlands.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
blank area over there, right, right.
And you can
Gotcha.
see it on the aerial photos
Right,
too,
I gotcha.
the widening of the ditches next door and that's the other thing, the change there.
It's amazing how much development's gone here in 30 years. You look at these historical photographs, it's just amazing how things have changed significantly.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just out of my own curiosity, what are the two competing companies' methodologies?
There is a representation of what the floating units themselves look like on the last page of the plan set. There's a detail sheet there that has the two options.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
One is more of a plastic floating unit. That's the one that uses the staging areas off to the side. And they're assembled, the row is assembled and then it's pushed out into the water. Those staging areas could be a couple of different ways. If the ground is open and pretty flat, sometimes they'll just use like a plastic tarp to slide the units in. Sometimes there might be a structure, a plywood structure built that's elevated off the ground. Any impacts in those areas would be temporary. And really, that structure would be on the bank rather than down at the water's edge. So there would be very little impact in that area. The other system is more like, I guess, a floating dock would be something that you would be more similar to. There's a frame, and then it has a foam float, and then the modules are attached to the top of that. And that system is the one that's set by crane. So there's very little disturbance around the perimeter of the pond to install those.
Is that the one indicated as being AccuSolar?
Yes, yes.
And it looks like those panels rotate?
Those have a seasonal rotation to them. They're not like a tracker that you may have seen.
Okay.
But
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's more of a manual adjustment based on the season.
Okay.
So I know that there are a few houses, so I'm just interested in the staging areas. There are two houses to the left, like two residences
Yeah.
at least, maybe three. Are you putting in the floating solar from the right side? Or are you staging also, are you getting near those abutters, is what I'm,
There would be a staging area at the north of Reservoir 3, if that's the system that they went with, yeah. Otherwise, with the crane, they could access it from the adjacent bog road to the east, so there wouldn't be anything up there.
but that's not too close to any of the single home.
It's a pretty good distance up to the residences. There are some residences to the west that you can see along
Yeah.
Canterbury, I think it is. But there's a residence that's north across the bogs as well.
Right.
So those adjacent property owners have been contacted
Right.
because of our zoning case, because we were given a reduced setback along that side with their agreement. So they are aware of the project. And they've been noticed with this application as well.
Okay, thanks.
Carl, Curtis, anything?
Not at the moment, no.
So I noticed you had some water quality data here or something,
It's really nice.
or dissolved oxygen information.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's the only water quality test you're doing is dissolved oxygen, right? It's just for, basically for aquatic life? I mean, is that what it's designed?
Essentially, I
Yeah.
mean, they're doing some pH and, using their psychedis to track, the clarity as
Right.
well, and just kind of creating a database. And, we really wanted to have them go out and get the baseline before anything was done. And obviously, things do change seasonally and as part of the operations of the bog and when water is, being used at more increased levels throughout the growing season and whatnot. They're also tracking invasive species as part of this as well, just to, everything is connected and everything kind of goes together. And so we really felt that the water quality and clarity is a very good indicator of the health of the ecosystem and the water that's in these reservoirs. So we thought that that was a good starting point, especially as those are the factors or the aspects of that water column that we would expect, if anything were impacted by adding something to the surface, that's something that would be a key indicator of a brewing problem. So that was the focus. And, like I said, we really tried to brainstorm amongst the team and, with the consultant about how best to approach this and what are the key indicators to really hone in on at this early stage and track as, the project progresses, if it progresses.
So there have been other studies in other places where they put floating solar in it. Has it changed the, you don't have any data?
We don't have access to that. We've been looking for that because we're being asked those same questions. It would be really nice to be able to get our hands on that. I know that New Leaf has reached out to some entities. Have you had any luck with
Yeah, I
that?
believe one of the larger systems that was in the photographs is on a drinking water reservoir in New Jersey. I think it may be the largest floating system in the US. So we were trying to see if there was public information there about water testing because it's a drinking water source.
So I think UMass Amherst has done research
Okay.
on floating. So, I did actually look at, I don't remember, it didn't seem to them that it had significant, but you should look yourself.
Right. Yeah. And so typically though, this water it's pretty clean, right? I mean,
Yes,
what it looks
it
like
is.
here.
Yes.
So, is there anything else released from the plastics or anything like that into the water? You guys, nothing's been done with it.
We've obtained as much information about the materials of construction as possible, and I think we've provided some of that to you. One of the manufacturers has done testing that shows, no hazardous materials leaching from the system. That's the plastic floating
Right.
one. The other one is more similar to a floating dock, which, people are a lot more familiar with.
Right.
And no evidence of any, hazardous materials there either.
And, something for us all to keep in mind too is not just is that water quality important ecologically, but, this is an active farm. And so the landowner, the grower, wants to make sure that, the water quality
good.
stays as
Right,
good
I
as
get
it
it.
is
Yeah,
today
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
So I think it's important from several perspectives to make sure that that happens. And, that's, as far as New Leaf is concerned, obviously it's a top priority. And, I think engaging with this company who has an excellent reputation, does a lot of work in large and small reservoirs throughout the Commonwealth, and beyond really the Northeast, I think is a really good step and an important part to kind of completing the picture here and making sure we're all, keeping tabs on what this could be.
Well, it's good you did a baseline, now you have
Yes.
a baseline to work from, so
Yep.
that's good.
Yes, for sure.
How
Yeah, I think-
flexible are these panels? I mean, it's not out of the question that reservoirs run dry sometimes, and if they bottom out on the bottom of the reservoir, they get damaged or anything like that?
Yeah, we've done bathymetric surveys of the ponds to establish the depth. The bottoms are relatively flat, so if it were to occur, the floats would sit on the ground.
There's no chance.
As long as there's no real
Yeah,
steep
that
slopes.
was my concern.
then
Could
they're
the
fine.
units be damaged if they land unevenly on the bottom of the reservoir?
If it's severely uneven, yeah, if there's a steep slope in some portion of it, then there's only a certain amount of flexibility between the units. But in this case, the bottom is relatively flat.
There's nothing in it that would, if it were to crack or anything, nothing was gonna reach out of it.
And we're not really anticipating that situation. I mean, there is a fairly substantial fluctuation in the water elevation with the agricultural operation.
Right.
Something on the order of 3 to 4 feet in terms of, the water surface itself. But we're expecting that these units would be floating under all conditions that are out there.
So you're not doing any more dredging or anything like that, the reservoir,
No.
making it deeper? They look like the reservoirs for the contour lines here, like maybe 10 feet deep maximum, is that right?
That's about right on the average, yes.
I mean, I think Reservoir 1 is much deeper than 10 feet.
Well, it looks like it's about 10 feet in here.
How so?
90, yeah.
Oh, you have the contour lines?
Yeah, there you go. See, it's 90s.
So when we were on the site visit last summer, we had mentioned or discussed the possibility of like a walkway, gangway out to access these things for maintenance and stuff like that. Is that still proposed?
It is a consideration. It will depend on the final selection of the materials. The AccuSolar system is more given to that. They have equipment where they can create a floating pathway out to it. For the other units, it would only be accessible by boat, really, for maintenance.
Got it. And would that be like if you were to go with the like walkway out there, would that be a permanent structure or would that be taken in and out?
It would be, and it would be, again, similar to a kind of a dock structure where there might be a walkway down to the dock. It would be similar to that.
Okay.
And then the electrical lines would be attached to that structure. The other way, they would be, they would be on the bottom of the pond under the water until they come out at the edge.
Is that an example of a walkway?
Yes.
So in the final example picture in the packet,
I
you
think
can
I did see that,
a
yeah.
walkway.
And would that be like on like a sonotube type foundation or did we talk about helical piles or something like that?
No, it would just be on the same type of floating structure.
Okay.
Out to that. There would be anchoring of the floating units themselves. I do have an example that would show you what the selection that we would choose would be. So it's the flat anchor in the lower left-hand photo on this exhibit here.
Yep.
And it's a flat plate with a sharp tip, and the plate would be inserted into the ground when it's flat, and then once it's under the ground and they pull it back, then that plate would turn so that it provides the support for the system. And those in our design would be below the water surface. So we're not proposing any bank anchoring in this case. So they would be a minimum of 10 feet away from the edge of water in the slope of the pond. And those are installed from the water surface as well.
When we were out there in the summertime, we talked about Reservoir 1 being a swimming hole. What kind of protection is going to be there from preventing these solar panels to be the biggest swim dock in Carver?
Great question.
We haven't completely worked out how that's going to be. The AccuSolar selection, there can be a fence that's around the perimeter of the floating array itself. we're trying to work on that with the other manufacturer. They don't have a product right now for that, so it may be that the pond itself has to be enclosed. But right now, the preference is towards the AccuSolar type of system where there can be a fence affixed to the floating array itself.
On the array itself.
Right, around the perimeter of the array.
Oh,
At least that will allow critters to get in.
yeah,
Use the
Yeah.
water.
wildlife to get in and
Or
out.
in the wintertime when the pond's frozen, people just walk right out to the,
Okay.
Hopefully not.
yeah.
All right, any other questions from anybody? It's a public hearing, so I have anybody from the audience?
Yes, hello.
Come on up.
My name is Rebecca Lipton. I
Rebecca,
just
please sign in and sit at the table.
Anyway, I have a question. Is water and wetland lake management, the people that are doing the water tests, going to be monitoring this going forth?
Yes.
Okay. And are you guaranteeing that your panels do not contain PFAS?
Yeah, the solar modules have no PFAS in the manufacturing process. And we provided material sheets that show that there's nothing in the floats either.
The manufacturing, but the coatings and everything else, because we're all on one aquifer, and, thank you. And there's already 3 PFAS locations in Carver that are polluting people's aquifer. So this is a huge concern, especially with the wetlands in that area. That's a different part of town than what's up here. The PFAS locations in this town are not being monitored, or nothing is being done in this town about it, and it is destroying people's wells. So
Understood.
it is a huge concern, floating voltaic solar panels.
Okay, well, we've provided information that shows that we're not using any of those. For the solar modules themselves, there are aftermarket coatings that are used in some systems.
That's right, yeah.
We are not proposing that, so we'd be open to a condition that we not use those types of aftermarket systems.
And who's going to monitor it? Because as I can tell, that nobody is monitoring solar panels on these boards. Nobody is going out to check for damage, any broken things happening out there. It's a major problem, and I think it should be a bylaw.
I believe it is a bylaw in zoning that there has to be an inspection every year.
But, you know, you have a bad storm, or you have damage, these panels they break, you know?
Right.
And I'm not saying yours, I'm just saying everybody's. And I'm really concerned about PFAS. We already have a major problem. This town doesn't have clean drinking water in North Carver.
I know that.
So, you know, and I go down to Ravenbrook and clean that grate myself. Because the state isn't doing anything about it, the town's not doing anything about it, nobody's doing anything.
Right,
And
but-
now we have Route 44, Carver, Green Park, with that PFAS dump that is now taking all of that water from the Whetstone Brook to Plimpton. So that's Plimpton's problem now because of Carver.
Well, we're talking about this particular.
Okay, but I'm just saying.
I know what you're saying.
I remember when all these projects, Savory, were permitted.
I know, but
And
what
I
I'm,
have watched over 35 years
All right.
the damage and destruction done.
the answer to your question is
Mm-hmm.
that I believe there is a bylaw, the solar bylaw in planning
Okay.
covers every inspection that has to be done.
And so how often is it being monitored?
That's-
When it,
You would have to talk to the planning board. You know, it's the
and
reason that
is it being done? And is it documented?
you'd have to ask the planning board.
I'm just.
The planning board is the board that is responsible for that because every solar facility in Carver has to get planning board approval. Not every solar has to get our approval. because if it's not near wetlands, we don't talk about it.
Right, and
So
this
it's the
is-
planning board that has to do
yeah.
every single one of them. So they're the ones that are responsible for setting the bylaws and enforcing them.
Well, I would like to see, going forward with even this project, since it's on a wetland, it's very close to a wetland, that somebody is accountable for testing. For
Well,
PFAS testing, I mean, you can tell me that it's not, doesn't have PFAS, and, you know, I will probably trust you, but I'm not, I have a lack of trust in general right now with people because of what's
Okay.
happened to these
Okay.
towns.
Again, we've heard from them that they're going to be testing it after construction, but also they're going to planning board for their approval next Tuesday.
Okay.
And the bylaws and planning come into play again, where the inspections are part of it. It doesn't matter whether it's water or land, the inspections that the planning board or the bylaws enforceable by the planning board are the same. So I understand exactly what you're saying, and I
they're
think it's
testing it-
important.
They've already tested it once, right? You said, are they going to be testing it, you know, forthcoming? I mean.
That was
is
your
this-
question, the answer was yes.
And what does that look like? Like, is that going to be quarterly? Is it going to be?
It would follow the bylaws of the planning board.
There's actually a
So they have
layout
a-
of that in this document that they submitted to us. You can find it on our Conservation Commission website under.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is
Yeah.
all this up?
It's on our website currently, and you know, if you need to take a closer look at it, you can come into the town hall and we can, you know, go over it. But what they're proposing here, you know, is not testing for PFAS. They're testing for dissolved oxygen. They're testing for, you know, turbidity and like clarity of water. So this is not currently proposed to be testing specifically for PFAS. As far as I've read, they are saying that they're going to be doing seasonal testing, so once in the summer, spring, and fall.
How about all the projects that have been approved for solar near or on anywhere be tested for PFAS? That's what I think should happen. I mean, there's PFAS in solar panels. And if you do research, you'll understand.
We've just been
that
told that the solar panels that are being proposed here do not contain PFAS, and that New Leaf, who's going to be doing this, is receptive to us putting an order of conditions that the aftermarket coating not include any PFAS, which means the
Okay.
entire unit will be
Ah,
free of
well-
PFAS.
Okay,
Okay?
I hope so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Anybody else? Okay. Sarah, you had asked that we keep this open. What is it that you'd like us to do tonight?
Just a suggestion. Having been through various reviews simultaneously, sometimes one board requests a change to the design that would require us to come back to this commission, since essentially the whole property is within jurisdictional area. So my suggestion would be to continue this discussion.
Okay.
So we can have our discussion with the planning board and understand if there are any requested changes that would require us to submit an amended or supplemental plan set to both boards. And that way we can just kind of make any changes together and
Okay.
not have to reopen a public hearing, if that's
All
okay
right.
with you guys. Okay.
Okay. But do you understand that we can't vote?
Yes.
Tonight. Okay.
Yes, this would just be a continued hearing.
Continued public hearing that we'll vote on after you get your whatever you need.
If that's okay with the commission, I think as far as the applicant is concerned, I think it makes the most sense.
Okay.
We would have to re-notify abutters and reopen the hearing with any changes that would need to be reflected in new plans. So I think it probably makes the most sense to just continue the discussion.
Yeah, if I know the planning board, they're probably gonna have a lot of questions about like fencing and access to this.
And they haven't done a site visit. I know that
Tom
Mr.
came
Bott
out,
came
yeah.
with us on our site visit,
Yes.
but no members came, and they typically like to see the sites too. So I think we have some time. I might even request the continuance be for 2 hearings, just to give us some time to figure out what they may be asking for and if it will impact what we're talking about in this forum.
So is this on the next Tuesday's planning
Yes.
board meeting?
Yeah, the 28th, I think it is.
Yeah, it is.
So,
Okay,
So for this would be continued to like February 19th?
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone have any other questions before we move to continue this?
I have no questions. I think it was a very good job. I'm glad that you did add the water testing. Like, that was a nice addition. So I appreciate it.
great.
All right, I will entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for 19C Ward Street, SC 126589, until Wednesday, February 19th.
So moved.
Second.
Second? All right, it's been moved. Carl and Dave seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it's unanimous.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
very much, guys.
Thanks
a
very
lot.
much. All right. That is it for our hearings. We'll go back to our discussions and our business. First up is the discussion of the town meeting articles for amendments to the Carver Wetlands bylaws.
Yeah, let me grab you a copy of those proposed articles, and then we can just go through all of those and...
No, I have to walk for a minute. Sorry, I have to get up for 1 second, guys. Sorry about that. Oh, listen, I'll be right over here. Just gonna walk.
All right. You have to do 20 laps? Is that your rehab?
I'm here, I'm just gonna walk.
Yep, go ahead. All right, so I have drafted and submitted our request for town meeting 2025 articles. And so there are 4 articles in total that we have on the draft town meeting warrant. And I worked with Elaine to get that all sorted out. The first article, draft article 25, is to add the word cranberry bog into our section for statement of jurisdiction, and that is section 1 and 3. The second article is to add a definition of cranberry bog into the wetland bylaw section definitions that we discussed. The third article is to add a reference to agricultural exemptions in the section of statement of jurisdiction, and essentially that's added into each of the statements of jurisdiction, just to make it clear that we do allow for agricultural exemptions. And the fourth article, Article 28, is to amend the wetlands bylaw fines section to increase the fine to $100 per day. It actually currently reads that they can be fined up to $50, but not per day. So I think that would be, an improvement, just to give this bylaw a little bit more teeth.
There's
in case.
$100 a day.
Yes,
The other one was just $50.
just
One-time
$50.
fee.
Yeah.
Not much of a deterrent.
And that would be
there.
per violation. So I mean, like the way we were reading it before is like each day is a violation, but yeah. So I'll pass this around. I think it makes sense for us to make a individual vote on each of those things, because we have to give a recommendation that will be in the town meeting warrant.
Okay. All right.
So we do that tonight? Both?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, we will. Does everyone want to read them first, or do we know what we're going to say?
I read them as he sent them out,
Okay.
so
Yep.
as long as it's the same as what you sent
It's
out.
the same, except the only thing is that the first one there was compiled into one, because basically we had 2 articles that had the same exact wording, but it was for statement 1 and statement 3 of the statement of jurisdiction. So this, Elaine, said it was confusing that we were asking for basically the same thing, just in 2 different sections. So I think it makes more sense the way it's written, just to have one, article that is asking for the words cranberry bog to be added into both sections of that. So essentially, it's 2 of those articles that I sent to you are combined into 1, and then the rest of it is the same.
Okay.
I have a question
Yes.
for you guys. So when it comes to town meeting and changing a bylaw, will our vote be on record? It would say the Conservation Commission supports this change, or?
Yes.
It's,
And-
right at the bottom
Right
of
at the
each
bottom, and
article.
select board, so that I understood. And then, is there any time at which we speak to why we're doing it? Or is there any,
There will have to be someone available to answer questions from
At the meeting.
okay.
at the town meeting.
I guess what I'm asking, is there any reason for us to draft a statement?
No, because the article will have a sort of a Cliff's
Summary.
Notes.
Yeah,
of what
so
we're doing.
if you look at those articles, underneath the actual wording, there's a brief summary where
Yeah.
it basically summarizes why we're
Why we're
doing
doing
it.
it, okay.
I made it very simple and straightforward, just so that it's not confusing to people, but yeah, each of those, it's essentially, to make a general summary of what we're proposing to do. But at the town meeting, you'll have an opportunity, anyone from the town can come up and, support it with their own comments. People will go up, ask questions. People can actually amend it on the fly at the meeting. So,
And can we speak as residents or
Yes.
as Conservation
Either way.
Commission?
Yeah.
Speak either way.
Either way.
Either way. Now, are you allowed to speak as a conservation agent?
I think so.
They have to
I've
let
never
them do
been
it,
to
though.
a town meeting before, but I would think so, that I could, yeah.
All right.
Don't they have to vote to let them speak?
I don't know, as a Carver employee, I don't know if that's the answer. I don't know.
I can find out a little bit
Yeah,
more
that's
about that,
interesting.
I
yeah.
think he's allowed to answer questions as the agent.
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going to need someone to advocate for this.
You're not gonna be there?
I'll be in Europe.
Oh, okay.
Well, good for you.
I could do it, I mean, I don't,
Yeah.
but I mean, having the meal there
But
would be helpful.
it's,
you know,
it's, my opinion on this is almost like what you were told as a child, don't speak unless you're spoken to,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
So unless someone raises questions, just go
You
with
did
the
a great
flow.
job at the last one in 2023, where there was some questions and you came up and answered them, and you were just very open about how you were viewing things, and I think people were receptive to that at the time. So yeah, I would take example from that, but
Or a couple of us could be there, it doesn't matter, and then we
Yep.
can sort of reinforce what you're saying to each other.
Right, and I mean, there's no rules against not bringing up examples,
Right,
you know, the 3 properties on Lakeview.
right.
With these changes would prevent those probably, or make it harder.
Well, make it at least clear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right, so, okay. Anybody else, any comments on these? All right, so we'll vote on each one, and I'm going to take a voice vote for each member on each one. So Article 25 is to amend the Wetlands Bylaw Statement of Jurisdiction to add the words cranberry bog.
Is that the one that defines the cranberry bog too?
No,
Oh, that's done,
no, so I'll need a...
This is the one that just changes it from bog
From
to
bog to
cranberry.
cranberry.
No, it adds.
It doesn't change it, it adds cranberry bog.
So I'll entertain a motion to endorse Article 25.
So moved.
Second?
okay. Second.
All right. All those in favor, voice vote?
Yes,
Ann?
yes.
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Carl?
Yes.
Curtis? And Savory Moore says aye. Okay, I will entertain a motion to endorse Article 26 to amend the Wetlands Bylaw, Section 5 definitions to add the definition of a cranberry bog.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, so moved and seconded. Ann?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
Curtis? Savory says aye. Article 27, amend the Wetlands Bylaw I'll entertain a motion to endorse Article 27, amend Wetlands Bylaw Section, Statement of Jurisdiction to add reference to exemptions for land and agricultural use as permitted in the regulation of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protected Act.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Ann?
Yes. Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Aye.
Curtis? Yeah, I'm only doing this because it's going to be on the bottom of these,
Yeah,
each
no, I
one
get it.
saying that we approved them 5-0, so it should be a matter of record that we did, and just in case there was not a unanimous vote. And finally, I'll entertain a motion for Article 28, amend Section 4 Wetlands Bylaw fines.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right. Ann?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
Carl? Curtis?
Aye.
Savory? Aye. All right, they're all approved unanimously endorsed unanimously to be on the town warrant. Now, on the third one about the exemptions for agricultural use, they used to be on there, correct? And we're,
It's not clear whether they were on there or it was a draft version that was mistakenly
Oh, okay.
on there, but I think, you know, it kind of clears things up to have them just because it's, our bylaw, the way it's read, seems like, you know, that the bylaw is not allowing for, or it seems that any alteration would require a permit, but where the way that we've been functioning is that if it's agriculturally exempt, then that's a totally different matter that's, you know,
Okay.
exempting it from permitting. So this is just to clear that up. It's not changing anything in the way that we're operating, but it's just to, you know, help out people who are, you know, concerned about their agricultural rights being, you know, infringed upon.
okay. Next up on discussions, the discussion to update the conservation fee schedule.
Yeah, so I'll pass around a copy of the fee schedule. Sorry, I only have 2 of them, but essentially, right now, we're charging $2,000 for our Category 6 NOI fee. And this is something that we don't need a town meeting vote for. We can just change this ourselves. So, you know, I had discussed with you guys earlier that we charge $2,000 for every ANRAD filing. You know, whether it be a 50-foot wetland buffer line or a 6,000-foot wetland buffer line. You know, I don't necessarily, you know, have an issue with the way it's done. It's been making us a decent amount of money, but at the same time, I think it's kind of unfair to people who do have like a little amount of wetlands on their property if they wanted to do a delineation, to charge them $2,000.
So you have, let's see, this is what you wanted to.
No, this is how it is now.
How it is now, okay.
So what I would recommend is that we amend Category 6 to, you know, charge per linear foot of the wetland line.
This is NOI, right?
Yep. And I think $2 per linear foot is how the state does it, and I don't see why we wouldn't do that as well. So that's just, you know, my recommendation. I think most of the time we do get wetland lines, like for example, we have one coming up for Fuller Street, Cranberry Bogs, the Cranberry Bog that we went out to take a look at right of first refusal for. That's going to be, you know, well over 3,000 feet, so it's gonna be $2,000 plus anyways. So I think it would make sense to put like a limit on that, like, you know, $2,000 maximum, or maybe more than that, like $4,000 maximum. That way, if there are long wetland delineation lines, we still would be making money, but
Kind of make up the money we're losing, but yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think that a cap of 4,000 is probably good. I think $2 a linear foot is a good price, and it's going to be a nice sliding scale depending on how much
Right.
wetlands is affected.
yeah.
So
All right.
what are these categories, or what do they mean?
So it's different types of projects. Like one would be like a residential project, and then like a dock would be like a category 5, I think, and then
Oh, I see. So they're
category
defined somewhere.
6. Yeah. So when you're filing for an NOI, you look at what the activities are, and then depending on the number of different activities you have to calculate the fee, and then half of that goes to the state, half of that comes to the town, and then additionally we're requiring these filings. So someone wants to file a ANRAD currently with the state and with us, they're getting charged, for a large wetland delineation, they're getting charged $2,000, which we get half of anyways. And then they're also getting charged an additional $2,000 from us. So it works out that we make approximately $3,000 when there's like a very large
So this
line.
site we just saw, Main Street, that's costing $2,000?
16 Main Street, yeah, that would be, well, that's a different type of application. That's an NOI application. It's not an ANRAD application.
Yeah.
So they're getting charged probably much less than that because they didn't ever file an ANRAD.
Yeah.
An
But they
ANRAD
all-
is
they all-
specifically when they, are requesting that we confirm the line. So most of the time, people are just getting a wetland delineation and they're not filing an ANRAD because they're, we're kind of going off of the wetland delineation that they have done. But, it comes up more so when there's like going to be a subdivision or a big project
Okay.
like that.
All right, so you basically want us to vote to change Article 6.
Yeah, it would be category 6 of the NOI fee schedule to $2 per linear foot for wetland delineation with a maximum of 4,000.
All right. I will entertain a motion for what Emil just said.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to change with category 6.
Category 6.
To $2 per linear foot with a maximum fee of $4,000. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, that's done.
Does anybody think the certificate of compliance after 10 years for $50 more is a little weak?
Yeah, I do think that is.
I think that should be a little bit higher.
Do you have a number in mind there, Carl?
Mark?
Maybe, I don't know, add a couple zeros to the back side of that?
Did you have one other thing?
Yes. If we want to make a change to that, we should probably do it now though before we move on.
Well, it's different.
May I see that?
So basically, if you have a
Wait 10
project
years
that
Certificate of compliance, you're only gonna charge an extra $50.
It would encourage them to.
It would encourage them to do it on more timely fashion.
if you have a project that
I mean,
expires
some projects are bigger than others.
and
but-
then you never
Still.
come back and get your certificate of compliance, then you just have an open filing that if you sell your house and the seller
Wants it to be done, yeah.
Well, the
Yeah.
paper police catch up on that. And they won't-
right.
Yeah,
If,
they
if
won't
the
put it
buyer
through.
doesn't realize it, then they get saddled with the house.
That's why you pay so much for lawyers when you're
Yeah.
buying or selling.
So what do you think's a good number? 250?
So what exactly were we talking about? Adding,
So
The extension to permits?
the 10-year one,
No, this was for the
where's the 10-year one? Let's see.
under last one on the certificate of compliance, more than 10 years
certificate of
old.
Compliance.
More than 10.
Oh, more than 10 years old. Oh, I guess. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, $50 is.
That's like the $50 for, not much of a deterrence.
Want to make it 250?
250,
I'd say
yeah.
250.
250 good? right.
250 plus the other?
The original
Plus,
fee?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
plus, it's added to.
Yeah,
It's not
instead
added
of, change the 50
An
to
additional
250.
$250.
Yeah, an additional,
That
all
makes-
right.
that makes
So I'll
sense.
entertain a motion to revise the fee, the penalty for having a COC longer than 10 years from $50 to $250.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that's approved unanimously. All right, did you have something else about?
Rush on 9-year-olds.
Yes. So, we got a request from the select board or the town administrator's office for the, right of first refusal for 27 Wenham Road. That's the property where we just had the, dual-use solar project on the Cranberry Bog, right off Wenham Road. So they're requesting to remove that from 61A. So the town has right of first refusal. So the select board is asking us to make a recommendation whether the town should exercise their right of first refusal for that property. So they'd like you guys to take a
That is the
vote.
solar field now?
Yep,
Well, that's
where
where
we
they're
just
gonna build
approved an
one.
order of conditions.
So
yeah.
that comes out of, that comes out of agriculture?
Yes.
They're being required to do that, yeah.
Why is that?
Why are they doing that?
I think it's a
It's part of the
tax
smart
issue.
program.
Yeah, it's
So
They-
is every solar field like that?
Yeah.
Okay, they have to come out of 61?
Yeah, that's one of the sticking points.
Oh, is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah,
So these ones we just look at, these floating ones, the same deal?
yep,
Interesting.
yeah.
So, but if we exercise the right, we got the money to buy it, right? I mean, it's like, if we
No,
said-
the town, well, I mean, we're making a recommendation as to whether the town should buy it. It
It's-
wouldn't be
yeah, whether-
conservation buying
yeah.
it. It would be the town
The
buying it.
town should buy it.
whether there's some value for our board for that property.
Yeah.
You know,
I would say that we have no need for it. So, anyone else comments?
No, I agree.
All right, all right, I'll entertain a motion that we recommend that the town do not pursue the right of first refusal for, what is it, 79?
27
27
Wenham.
So
Wenham.
just to be clear, it's gonna stay, so, but if it does, once it does come out of 61A,
Mhm.
once they stop using it for solar in 20 years, whatever it is, they can build houses on it, right? Is that correct?
Well, it's still wetlands,
Oh, it's still wetlands,
yeah.
even though, all right, okay, it's still a bog, right?
Yeah, it's still wetlands.
Yes,
and-
that is a
yeah.
wetland bog.
So it's still protected, no matter what?
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's
yes.
the point, that's what I just want to make sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
It's not an upland area.
No, that's a good
I remember.
right.
Okay, cool.
All right, and I just have one last thing that I want to mention, put it on public record. At our last meeting, which was just before Christmas.
We didn't make a motion, we didn't vote on that.
Oh, sorry, okay.
I make a motion that we do not exercise first, we move, you know.
Okay, second?
Second.
All right, been moved and seconded that we do not,
We do not recommend.
do not recommend that the town take the land by right of first refusal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Thank you, Carl, for reminding me about that. The last thing I want to bring up is at our last meeting right before Christmas, I think it was the 18th of December. It was a long meeting, and towards the end of the meeting, Mr. Bellman came in and said that the door was locked.
Oh, yeah.
And Emil and I went back and determined that the door was probably on a timer and closed somewhere between 8:30 and 8:40, locked somewhere between 8:30 and 8:40. And we looked at the YouTube video of our meeting with the clock. And at 8:30, our discussion was the continuation of the public hearing for 16 South Main Street till tonight. And that was the last public hearing we had, and then after that, it was our discussion. So there was really no public hearing that was closed while the doors were locked. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you for doing that.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make sure it was clear, so, moving forward,
Is there some issue now that somebody has gone further than that?
No, it hasn't. It was on Facebook. I replied on Facebook, which I normally don't do, but I felt it needed to be done, and then it just
Yeah,
kind
I
of went
think,
away.
I don't know, I need to double check with whoever is locking the door because I'm not sure that, you know, it's been consistent So, I mean, tonight I propped the door open, but
I noticed.
That's probably happened to more than one
Oh,
board.
yeah, it's happened to us.
More than one night.
Right.
It just happened to be, and if Bob
All right.
hadn't have been there, we would have known about it.
right.
Right, exactly. And one other thing I want to say regarding that, and it's something that Emil and I spoke about, when we post our agenda, it states that every public hearing begins at 7 o'clock.
Correct.
That's when our meeting is. Now, if we have 4 public hearings, and the first 3 are postponed for one reason, then the 4th one on our agenda is going to be at 7 o'clock. So, my feeling is that if we say that our meeting starts at 7 o'clock, that you as the public need to be here at 7 or should be here by 7 if you want to participate in any of the public hearings, because there's no guarantee as to what time those are going to
Does it
be.
state anywhere, though, that we need to keep the doors unlocked the entire time?
Well, open meeting law does state
Open
that.
meetings you have to.
It does state
They
that.
have to be together.
For the entire meeting, the meeting starts at 7
And
o'clock.
the technical aspect of the law is that, yes,
Okay.
that has to happen. But,
And we don't know that anybody tried to get in to speak at any one of the meetings.
No,
one's
we don't.
come
And
forward
it's really-
contacted you and said, hey, I tried to get in, the door was locked.
yeah, and it's really the public hearing section of the meetings that are kind of protected by open meeting laws, more so than discussions or anything else.
And we had a
That's
lot of
just a
people
business
here.
meeting.
I mean, all the people that needed to be here were here.
Everybody who was here at
Yeah,
7.
they were here to
Right.
do it.
Yes.
And Belvin's, he wasn't even on the agenda.
No, he wasn't.
Right. So, I mean, that wasn't like we were,
No,
knocking him out of the meeting.
no, I think he saw the lights were on and decided to see who was here.
No, yeah, I mean, we appreciate Bob for bringing that to.
Sure, no
Like I said,
problem.
it's
Right.
it's probably happened many times. It's-
Right,
it's
but,
more than just us.
since we never know how long our meetings are going to go, it's hard to tell the town when to lock the doors.
Correct.
Because we don't want to say, keep them open till 10 o'clock, and we leave here at 7:45.
Right.
And then they're open. So that's something we just have to kind of investigate. Okay, minutes for 12/18. Has everyone read them?
Yep.
Yep.
I'll entertain a motion to approve or amend.
I make a motion, we approve as written.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, minutes are approved. We are done. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second? All right. Curtis, second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. We're out. Thank you, Area 58.